Okay. Hello, Mr. Mandeya.
Hello, Mr. Mpunga. How are you?
I'm very good. How are things over there? Are you keeping safe from COVID?
We are trying, under the circumstances, our very, 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 very difficult conditions. You can imagine.
It's a difficult time, but the important thing is to mask up, physical distance, and hygiene. Yes. So
yes, and to sanitize.
It is indeed. So yes, welcome everyone to another edition of our Knowledge Share. Thank you to the ILO for the Green Enterprise Program, and thank you to the Embassy of Sweden for sponsoring the program. Today, we're talking business management, one of the 4 pillars of the Green Enterprise Mentoring Program, and we'll focus on leadership, mission, vision, values, and how it all comes together in a strategy. So to take us through it, today we have an esteemed gentleman, an accomplished executive coach, corporate education expert, and a management consultant. He is the founder of the Institute of Leadership, Research and Development in Zimbabwe. He's a member of the CEO Roundtable. He's a member of Coach Source and International Coaching and Mentoring Foundation. He's also an author and a certified coach. He is passionate and highly successful in the areas of staff productivity, discipline and respect, and growth through the creation of conducive working environments. Welcome to the show, Mr. Robert Mandeya.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Mpunga.
Excellent. No, that's good.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, so before we get stuck into it, Mr. Mandeya, give us a self-introduction about yourself. What's been your life story to this end?
All right, you've said a lot about me and myself. Anyway, I'll add a bit more on what you have said about my resume. I started my career as a teacher back then, and it is that time that I became very interested in entrepreneurship. And when I was now a lecturer at a teacher's college, that's when I started some business to do with fiberglass manufacturing in Mutare. And from there, when I moved into Harare, because maybe I felt Mutare was becoming a bit too small for my dreams, what I wanted to achieve and what I wanted to attain. So I moved into Harare and got into general management with some organizations, into executive roles with some private organizations, as well as some global multinationals. Because the ambition was big and I wanted to really to go higher. And maybe after a total of 20 years in government and corporate business, I moved into career of knowledge transfer in entrepreneurship, leadership, management, and corporate education. This is where the idea of the Institute of Leadership, Research and Development started. So within that, I also created a program which I called Business Incubation Program, where we were identifying potential business people with a view to helping them, assisting them, and connecting them to investors, connecting them to financiers, and also helping them with maybe some office space. This is a recently mooted idea which we were working with some financial organizations before the COVID pandemic struck. And I can say maybe for now that initiative is in limbo because of the challenges that we are facing at the moment out of the COVID-19. But suffice it to say that the idea is still very live, and we are very upbeat about it, and we would want it to continue the business incubation program, and we would want to identify many more potential business people and try to give them that head start. And we are also into media. We do help organizations with visibility, writing articles, feature stories, and also connecting them with the media fraternity and media houses, different media houses from electronic to print. We're trying to help organizations that want to be out there and be visible so that they really promote their business, they promote their products, and so forth. And I'm a columnist with the Zimbabwe Independent on people management issues, where I'm writing on management issues in particular, as well as leadership and corporate governance issues. My column runs every Friday. And for those that have access with the Zimbabwe Independent, they can access my articles there. They are also online. And I'm motivated by shaping minds as well as transforming organizations. This is my motivation. And this is what really inspired me into getting into all this sort of stuff. I'm not sure if I've said enough. There's quite a lot that I can say, but for the sake of time, maybe this is just a bit of who I am.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mandeya. Sounds like you're quite the entrepreneur yourself, from Mutare to Harare, from fiberglass to teaching to corporate, to opening an institution, and also in media. So well done. It's great to have you. Welcome once again. And without wasting more time, we'll get into the business of the day. So as mentioned, we're here to talk about leadership. Leadership covers many things, and I think it means different things to different people. So, Mr. Mandeya, what is leadership?
Right, it's quite a broad question that you are asking here. Leadership, I would say, is everything. And some people have got a tendency of thinking that leadership is a preserve for those that are in positions of authority in organizations or what. And yet leadership even starts with the person himself. There is what we call self-leadership, where you really are managing yourself at a personal level with the certain disciplines that are involved in how you shape your life and how you manage yourself in your day-to-day activities. So leadership is quite broad. And leadership really, I would say, is the ability to inspire and influence course of events, not only influencing how you're doing your things at a personal level, but also influencing others. And it is also about providing direction. So it's quite a hell lot of things what leadership is all about.
No, that's interesting. Now, we obviously put into the mix that we've got some entrepreneurs within our group at various stages of development of their businesses. Some are early startups, and some, fair to say, are already advanced enterprises. But why does it become important to the organization or the entrepreneurship to understand what leadership is? Hello? Oh, looks like we've lost Mr. Mandeya. Okay, whilst we wait for him to come back, I guess anyone like to share their thoughts on what leadership is? I see we've got Mr. Kofi, Ruben, and Liz, as well as Vani.
Hi, Fungai. Hi, I'm out today.
Good. Looks like we lost Mr. Mandeya.
The screen was always screaming that his network was not stable. I think he's using Net One. I was also using Net One. I've just switched over right now. It's apparently something is happening with Net One.
Ah, okay. No, that's a shame. One of the challenges that we face here. So whilst we have you, Mr. Ruben, what are your thoughts and importance on leadership?
For me, leadership is one of my I'm actually very passionate about leadership. I wouldn't say I know all about leadership, but I think firstly I would like to agree with Mr. Mandeya. One of the most important factors in leadership is yourself. You can't expect to lead a whole lot of people when you can't lead yourself. So issues to do with integrity, issues to do with being principled, professionalism, and issues like that become very paramount because you can't inspire others because, as you say, leadership is about influence. You can't influence others to do those things which you are not leading by example. So leadership begins even in the home. When, as a parent or as a husband or as a partner in a relationship, how are you carrying yourself? So we can go and study all these books and theory about leadership. If you put them into practice, can you epitomize what you believe leadership is? So I think that's what's most important. It's the individual who is the leader first. But of course, there's somebody with feedback coming through. That was Liz, I think. Okay. She's switched off. She's taken off. So I think primarily I could go on to define leadership. Leadership has got so many definitions. But for me, I think, like he said, it's about inspiring other people. It's about influencing them in the right direction. And if you need to do that, you yourself, first of all, have to epitomize that which you want to represent. You want to demonstrate the leadership qualities that you want to see in other people. And then the rest will follow. Of course, there are also so many schools of thought, but I've also come across what John C. Maxwell talks about. He talks about the 5 levels of leadership, level 1 to level 5. But I won't go into that. But you'll find that most leaders, and more so in those productive and successful companies, are normally at level 3. Generally, we've got leaders falling into level 1 and 2. You rarely find leaders in level 4 and level 5. But it's important. If you are a leader, you have to be somebody who gets to level 4 or level 5, as explained by John C. Maxwell. I think that's what I needed to share.
No, thank you for that. You touched on one aspect, the aspect of leading a team, bringing the team together, and coming up with a common goal for everyone. Now, obviously, there's always the team dynamics that come into it. How do you strike a balance? You don't want to be too overbearing. Equally, you also can't afford to let things go. So how do you strike that balance?
Is this question directed at me, or it's a general question to everybody?
A general question, but you're on the mic. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So at first instance, I think one of the mistakes that we make in leadership, and I've been a victim of this, or I've been very much at the center of this, is that as a leader, you see where you want to go, which is obvious. As a leader, you should. That's the first thing a leader should do. They should be able to see where we want to go. So the leader must.
Hello.
Oh, Mr. Mandeya is back. So would I put down my mic?
Hello, Mr. Mandeya. Hello, are you there? I think, Ruben, the floor is still yours.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Mr. Mandeya.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. It's technical glitch. Just to dropped the line just suddenly.
No, that's okay. Welcome back. I'll just allow Ruben to finish what he was sharing with us in regards to his experience with leadership and how to strike a balance, and then we can pick up our conversation, Mr. Mandeya.
All right.
Thank you. Ruben, are you still with us?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot now. I have to speak in front of Mr. Mandeya, who's the expert. But anyway, I'll share, and as well I stand to be corrected as well now that the expert is back. But what I wanted to share is that as a leader, normally my mistake for me, and I made this mistake for a very long time, I would set the goal, call it a common goal, whatever you want to call it, but then I would not take time to sell my vision, to convince the team that I was working with that this is the right direction to take. And also beyond that, I would also go on to plan the steps, the detailed steps to get to the goal. Of course, that made sense, but maybe there was another way to go around it. And I wasn't cognizant of that. So I more of drove the process right from the outcome that we wanted to achieve. And then I would also kind of walk everybody through the process in a way that would stifle creativity, in a way that would more of discourage my team members. So it just became a one-man journey, and everybody following whether they like it or not, because obviously there will be consequences if you don't come along. Later on, I realized that there are three things you need to look at as a leader. You need to understand the task or where you want to go. You also need to understand the team, and then you can work together towards a common goal. So later on, I realized that when you study the individuals, you'll actually find that your role becomes simpler. Your role becomes one to see the end game, where you want to go. But then you let the other guys participate as individuals as well as a team, and then it's much easier to get to the goal. And you might actually find that you might have put the goal at 3 years or so down the line, but you might actually achieve it in less time, maybe 2 years, because there are people with the right skills amongst your team. And once you share your vision and you let them fill in the gaps of where you want to go, it becomes much easier to achieve the goal rather than do it as an individual. I learned this the hard way. I would like to believe nowadays I do it a lot better, but obviously there's room for improvement. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Look, I'm glad that you'd like to believe that things are better. It's always positive. But no, thank you for sharing that experience. It brings a lot into perspective in terms of teamwork, motivating the team, achieving the common goal, and understanding that it's not only you who has to carry the load. So, Mr. Mandeya, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I think you had part of that conversation. Let's get from there. What are your thoughts? Ruben shared his experience in regards to where he was getting it wrong and the lessons he learned out of it. So I would like to hear what your thoughts are.
Yes, there are quite a lot of things that one needs to understand particularly when you're starting something and when you're trying to actualize that dream. That sometimes some of the things that we dream of sometimes are not manageable in the end. But it's always good to have that dream that is very big. The problem, like the speaker, who said Edwin. Ruben was saying, it's about sharing the vision, yes, with the other, so that you get a buy-in. That's where most of the challenge comes in, that buy-in, because sometimes some people will be operating at tangent. And sometimes also it's to do with our communication, how we're communicating the vision to the others. So that we get that buy-in. At times, we do not express our expectations as clearly as we are supposed to. And sometimes then we have this malignment or misalignment with the team that we would want to advance our goals and vision with. It's all to do with sometimes poor communication, how we articulate ourselves. And there is a tendency when someone is in leadership or in a position of management to think that or to take it for granted that everyone else understands what we are doing here and knows where we want to go. And it's far from that. In most cases, people would really need to be grilled and to be sort of effectively communicated with as to what really are we doing here and where do we want to go. And what is expected of each one of the people within the team? What are their roles? Sometimes some of these things are not clearly clarified. And then we do have these challenges where we would have some people pulling in other direction or not really understanding exactly where the company or the organization is going. So these are some of the challenges that leaders do have, and it's to do with communication most particularly.
Very interesting. You raise a very strong point on communication. So how do you get the balance? It's all right to say that, you need to speak to people, make sure everyone's on board. But, with the pressures, and to be fair, generally in the good times, performance kind of masks a lot of things, but the cracks tend to feature during the bad times. So how do you get that balance and keep everyone moving in tandem?
Right. Getting that balance would be a bit, it would be a bit difficult under the current circumstances that we are in, where everyone is under pressure. But what it needs is a bit of some maturity and level-headedness, which is one aspect that is very important about leadership. To be mature, to be level-headed, to be emotionally intelligent is also what it requires. Because sometimes we would face some of these challenges that would really trigger your emotions negatively. So you really need to strike that emotional intelligence and have it really deep-seated in you for you to manage some of the knocks that come with the management of people, because it's not very easy to manage people. You're dealing with people coming from different backgrounds. You're also dealing with people with different experiences and so forth and so forth. So you really need to have that dynamism, which is also required at leadership level, to be very dynamic, to be emotionally stable, to be emotionally intelligent, and also to be very motivational. So that you will be able to get these people to develop interest in where you're driving them to. Sometimes we become so impatient and we think people learn as fast as we maybe think, or as we ourselves would have learned things. But it's far from that. People have got different learning aptitudes, and they develop differently and they take time. In Shona, sometimes we say vana vembwa avaoni musi umwe chete, meaning that when I think those that keep dogs at their homes, they relate quite very well with this example that I'm giving. That when a dog gives birth to a litter of puppies, one would open its eyes today, the other one next week, the other one a week after. This is what the saying says. And the same applies when you're dealing with people. Know that the way they conceptualize issues, the way they conceptualize the environment that they are in, particularly even their immediate environment within the organization, it's different. So you need to really take them as such. You need to understand the personality differences and these developmental differences that they have, and try to bring them on board, and understanding how you could really deal with each one of them, and to come up with a team.
No, excellent. Thank you for that. So in it, we're saying there's the emotional side where we need to learn to manage that. We also need to obviously consider the emotions of the team, and particularly in these difficult times. Would there be any questions from the audience before we move on to other aspects of getting the enterprise going? Or comments? Everyone's welcome. Okay. No, looks like there isn't, so that's okay. No, thank you. So, Mr. Mandeya, the next area I want us to talk about is the mission. The mission of an enterprise. We see these mission statements with many enterprises, but what's the purpose and importance of a mission?
All right. An organizational mission actually spells out the purpose of the organization. The purpose of an organization's existence is captured in a mission. What do you intend to achieve? And how do you intend to achieve? Truly reflects the deep shared vision as well as values of everyone within that organization. It must create what we call great unity and tremendous commitment from everyone. Actually, it must be derived from the mission of an organization. And it must also create in people's hearts and minds a frame of reference or a set of criteria or guidelines by which they will govern themselves. You know, if they are properly inducted in the mission of an organization or business, they will be able to really guide themselves in their day-to-day activities. That is what the governing of themselves refers to here, that they must be able to govern themselves because they should be guided by the mission. They should understand what is the purpose of the organization's existence, why do we exist, and what do we want to achieve and serve in the communities that we exist.
Okay. So, there comes the aspect of the entrepreneur, the one who's obviously started the business, who largely drives much of what happens in regards to the mission and the leadership and culture of the organization. But who else, how do you go about creating that mission? Coming up with the ideas, and obviously you want to put something that has got meaning and something that you commit and you live by. But there's an obvious process of developing that mission. How do we go about it?
Yeah, normally with those that would have started the business, it starts with the entrepreneur, the owner of the business. But as the business grows, as you try to bring in more players in the business, they must also share that mission. So what it entails is that you must then look at the team that you have and also try to include them in developing a mission that now suits the direction of the business that it's taking, so that it's a shared one, far from what the original one would have been. So it must go through some phases of change. You now want it to be not only your own mission, but also the mission of everyone who you are bringing into business. So if you have got a board, then it must also start from the board. It must then be shared down to all those that are in management position, even including those that are not necessarily in management position. And normally when we're doing what we call strategic retreats, I normally want organizations to bring everyone, because it's not only management that should be seized with coming up with the direction the organization is supposed to be taking, but everyone, because each department has got its own skill set that are involved, and as such, they also have got their own way of looking at things. For instance, if you are going to be asking a groundsman the vision that, or the mission that you would want to, or the contribution that you would want to add to the mission of the organization, he will give you a totally very different angle of looking at things from the perspective of a ground person. Similarly, with everyone within the structures of the organization, they will give you different perspectives as how they would think their contribution would add up to the mission. So everyone must be involved in the development of the mission.
Oh, that's interesting. So we're saying that we should take a top-down approach and bottom-up. Look at integrating all the different management levels and the different operational levels. Now, won't that take too long? Hello, I'm asking that if, you're saying we take a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach, integrating and incorporating everyone's contribution. But doesn't that process take too long? Doesn't it involve and bring too many dynamics and complications? I'm sure you've heard of the committee syndrome, where, we start changing things and competing, being politically correct, and using the big words and, so how do we facilitate that?
Right. It takes a strategic thinking on the part of leadership, as well as your planning and the delivery of issues from a leadership point of view. And it also takes a bit of people management skills. How do you manage people to bring them into perspective, bring them into or on board to buy on to whatever changes that you want to initiate. It's also it takes a bit of some change management skills on the part of leadership. How are you managing change? So you must also have that change management, and as well as that communication aspect that I talked about. And there must be also the aspect of persuasion and influence that I also spoke about when I was talking about leadership. So all these things, there are skills that makes a good leader, or that a good leader needs for him to maneuver and be able to negotiate around some of the challenges that you're talking about.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So now we have some enterprises, the early startups. We largely, it's probably still a one-man band or maybe a few individuals that have come together. Now, at what point do you write your mission? And if you don't have a large organization, it's yourself, how do you develop or draft that mission?
Particularly if you're a startup, sometimes you don't have even a structure.
Yes.
of business. How you but as you grow, maybe you begin to see the need for a structure. How many departments that you would need for to manage the strategy that you have? Was structure really drives the strategy. If the structure and the strategy are not in sync, then you certainly would have a false start. So when you begin to now have people coming into the organization, as you formulate the structure of the organization, then that's maybe when you need to really now consider how you would now bring in these other people who you are hiring to so also have an input into the formulation of the mission of the organization. I will give an example of another organization. It's still a small one. They are into taxis, and because they are growing, recently they've asked me to help them with the organogram, because they didn't even have an organogram to begin with. So we've been working on the organogram and bouncing the organogram to everyone involved, including even the taxi drivers, the management, and everyone, to see whether it will be able to achieve the strategy that they want to achieve. So there are so many dynamics that are involved, and you really have to look at it from that angle, not to be rigid, to understand that as the organization is growing, so the need to also align it with the changing environment, as well as the changing pattern of the organization itself.
Okay. Oh, that's really good. Thank you for that example. I guess, yeah, it highlights that it can be done, and there's no harm in engaging everyone in the organization, because often we can get caught up in wanting to keep secrecy on some of these matters. Now, before we move on, I'll ask the audience, is there any comments, questions? This is your time. We've got Mr. Mandeya here with us, and I'm sure he'll gladly respond. We are either doing very well.
Do we have participants there?
There's 9 of us. Ruben,
they've taken leave.
Yeah, they could have. Or maybe we're doing such a good job, Mr. Mandeya, that everything is perfect.
Or not a good, or I'm doing nothing at all.
Yes, it's always one of the two. All right. So we'll move on to the next section, which is the vision of the organization. Again, it's another thing that nowadays we see in almost every enterprise. There's a mission, there's a vision. So, we have the leader, we have the mission. Where does the vision come in?
Actually, the vision is the genesis, is the beginning, because it starts off as a dream. The vision is the dream, because what sets everything off is the vision. It's that dream that puts everything into, because everything starts off as a dream. Even those that do architectural work, it starts off just as a dream, as a plan, in mind. It's an aspiration, right? What you aspire to do and what you aspire to achieve. So it's so abstract. A dream is something that is very abstract. This is why we say when you're dreaming of something, you must dream big. The dream must be bigger than what you envisage yourself, so that it becomes much more meaningful. So the dream is the genesis, it's the beginning of everything.
All right, no, understood.
That's what because vision equates to sort of a dream. It's a vision. It's not very tangible, but it's something that really you're thinking about. It's something that you aspire.
Yes, an aspiration. So how do you take that dream and put it into words on paper and come up with the vision statement? Hello? Yes, I was now asking that, the vision is the genesis, it's the aspiration, the dream.
So issues, things, yes. And it is where the issues of missions and values are developed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so when we see those vision statements, how do we get to that point? Because dreaming is great. You obviously are providing a service or producing a product that you want to sell. But sharing that vision, you've got some entrepreneurs that have done really, really well. Like your Elon Musk, I'm sure they had very big dreams, which they pursue to get to where they are. But how do you then bring that vision into practicality and come up with that vision statement, that symbolizes your organization?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you, hello?
Hello, yes, I can hear you, Mr. Mandeya. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Cut off there.
Hello, yes, welcome back.
Yes, yes. Hello?
Yes, Mr. Mandeya, welcome back. I can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, I was asking that how do we take those aspirations, those dreams, and put them down on paper? Because, you know, obviously if you get it wrong, there might be some consequences that come with it. You know, you want to give an impression to your potential customers or to a community. You know, so how do you take those aspirations, those dreams, and put them down into a vision statement?
It's now a question of putting together all things that you are aspiring or that you want to build, to achieve, and now picking on the key components, right? The key components of that development. What are the key components in the dream? You must be able to identify the key components that really capture that dream, so that you will not miss out on some of the things that constitute your dream. So it's very important to really, when you have that dream, to phrase it out and make sure that it captures, all right, all the components that make up that very dream that you have, so that you won't miss out on anything. So it's about capturing those key aspects in the dream that matters.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, once again, I'll ask a similar question to before when we're discussing the mission. You know, when you're a one-man show, it's easy enough to come up with a vision of your own. But when you bring in a team, you know, who gets involved in developing that vision of the organization?
All right, I'll come back to the issue of mission that I spoke about earlier on, that everyone now it becomes must become part of all the developmental processes that are in. This is why I was saying the strategic retreats that companies have, it gives them opportunity to revise some of these things now as an organization, not as individuals, but as an organization, to see where they can tweak, where they really can, where they're doing well, where they're not doing well, and also how they intend to shape their organization to conform with the obtaining environment and the challenges that are obtaining. This is the purposes of strategic retreats, to give people in an organization that opportunity to reflect on progress or lack thereof, as well as to put everyone into perspective as to where they want to take the organization to. So everyone must be involved. This is why I say, normally when I am doing the strategic, I would want everyone involved, including even the grounds people, because you cannot tell a ground person what he's supposed to do when you're particularly in those high horses, in the high offices. You would not really know what is required down there. So bringing everyone in would bring in a different angle as to how you are supposed to shape up and be able to work towards that mission of the organization. So sometimes there is a tendency of some organization having consultants, you know, university lecturers and staff to come and do the vision or mission of the organization, you know. And sometimes it becomes so detached from the people in an organization. It becomes elitist, so to say, and it becomes also very difficult to share or to get a buy-in with the people who are going to apply whatever is supposed to be applied from the vision and the mission of the organization. So people will begin to struggle because it has been done in offices.
So
and not everyone was involved in it. So communicating it also becomes very difficult. Hello?
Hello, yes. So you're saying there is often a
Hello?
disconnect. Yes, Mr. Mandeya. I can hear you.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there is a risk.
Maybe sorry, if I can hold you a bit.
Yeah, sure. That's okay.
Because
so anyone
if you can also put your link. Hello?
Hello, yes. Whilst we wait for Mr. Mandeya, anyone like to make any comments?
Sometimes it's a dispractical application of the day-to-day tasks in the organization. There is a disconnect because of this issue of bringing in consultants to do some of these things and not involving the people in the organization.
Okay, so it can be, obviously challenging, and often it's very easy for things to be organized or discussed and decided in the offices, in the high offices of the organization. Now I see there's a comment here from Vani. If the leader's mission and vision change after a year of establishing the business, what should be done? I guess, that's a good point. And to add on, often there is rapid growth periods that come up for enterprises. At what point then do you revisit that mission and vision?
Right. With the rate of change, Fungai, I think the vision must be revisited as often as possible. These days, normally, even when you're doing strategic planning, the 5-year plans are no longer obtainable anymore. They're no longer very practical, given the fast rate of change. So we would rather have a regular interval of reviewing some of these things based on the change demands that are happening currently. Because these days, honestly, I think people must really move up to speed. Because sometimes you get overtaken by events. Yeah. If you wait for 5 years to elapse and to put things, even when you come from those strategic meetings, you must be able to review your plans, your strategies as often as possible. I would not want to give a real time frame. Maybe I would say even these days, weekly or monthly, you must be reviewing your act, because things are moving at very fast pace, and you must not be a slave of some of the documents that you have produced from strategic retreats that you have had. So you must move with the speed of the environment currently.
Well, which, fair to say, Zimbabwe's environment is very fluid. At one point you're talking rates, the next time you're discussing EcoCash, the next time you're in lockdown and there's COVID. So yes, you need to be dynamic in line with the fluidity that's in the market. So thank you. No, you always have to be on the move.
Yeah. You have to be on the move. These days, you have to keep your eyes open, because you never know. It's not only in Zimbabwe. Globally, the change wave is just too enormous, and it's quite confusing for many. And for those that really take time to adjust, they are really falling off the wayside.
Yes. No, that's very true. Rate of change is too high. So we've discussed the leadership, the mission, the vision. And the next area we want to look at is the values. Again, it's now almost standard to see values on the marketing websites and pages for the enterprises. There's obviously the personal values of individuals, the entrepreneurs, the founding members of the organization. Then each individual brings their own personal values. And then obviously once we come together, there's the professional aspect of those values as we work together as a team and dealing with customers, suppliers, and other stakeholders. And then the obvious fact nowadays that the communities hold organizations to account. You know, the sustainability aspect. So comes in your social value. How does that whole dynamic work, Mr. Mandeya?
Right. Yes. It's quite complex, as you put it. Very complex to try to put everything together and also manage the business side of the organization. Because your business exists to make a profit. At the end of the day, they want to sustain themselves in the event. So there is, of course, a need also to manage the social aspect of business, because business exists in communities, and as such, they must also be seen to be plowing back to the communities that support them. And this can be done in various ways, and the various promotions also can be carried out to try and cater for that side. But then when you're talking of the issue on the issue of values are those issues that really holds the organization together, that defines the culture of and the behavior in an organization. For instance, when you're talking about professionalism, and when you're talking about even being timeous or punctual or punctuality, all those things organizations have.
Hello, Mr. Mandeya. Hello. Hey, looks like, can everyone else hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, so maybe we might have lost Mr. Mandeya. Hi, Liz, how are you?
Well, thanks.
That's good. Any thoughts?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Any thoughts on values?
Okay. So with values, issues of like, faith and so values generally, I think they bring in some aspects of your upbringing and what you grew up believing in, and then as you transfer it to your business, how then do you even transfer it like to other people that then join you as you're on your business? So I think, because it's not like say you say of your values, say around Christianity and stuff, and then as a business, how do you cascade that? So I don't know. Is it safe in the first place to have values on faith?
Well, there's nothing wrong with having values on faith, because I personally think there's nothing wrong with it. But obviously, we are still individuals in the organization, so we all bring our own values to the table and beliefs. But it's I guess it's how we all integrate each other and come to accept that whilst we are one team, we're still individuals, but we come up with values that suit the organization. Is there any other thoughts on this point? So look, I mean, the obvious one for me is obviously to get into business, you must be very brave. You obviously have to be very creative and determined, overcoming the negativity and sometimes the discouragement that you get from family and friends from starting the enterprise. Now, when it then comes onto the professional side, we have to have respect for one another. As you mentioned, Liz, one can come with their Christian values. Obviously, they want to apply them. And the reality of life is sometimes you may not necessarily have agreement. There's people who may not agree with your values. And so we need to avoid a scenario of imposing values on each other, but coming to understand that this is what this person believes in. But as an organization, there comes the aspect of working together, having respect for one another, having trust, obviously as the business owner, at some point you have to let go as you start up. You may be doing everything, so everything is within your control. But as the organization grows, you now need to bring in more people, and those people come with their own values. So it's about bringing them on board and getting them to align with the values of the organization. So another individual value that I think is important is obviously humility. As a startup, when it's your idea, it's very easy to get carried away. Don't get me wrong. It's good to celebrate your idea and your achievements and what you're pursuing. But you also want to avoid a situation where you become egotistic, particularly when you provide services or products to customers. You also have to be prepared to take on criticism from others. When you're a one-man show, it's easy enough. You just carry on with your business. You're not too worried about what others may have to say. But as the team grows, there's an aspect of criticism or difference in opinions, which you have to accept and accommodate. As an individual, on a personal level, I also think that integrity, being honest and ethical, particularly challenging in a forever changing environment. That those personal attributes become critically important. Then the obvious one now is where I take my respect to all the entrepreneurs, not only the ones with us today, but everywhere. It's the mental toughness. I mean, the environment that we are in is a very difficult one.
Hello.
Oh, yes, Mr. Mandeya. Hello? Hello, Mr. Mandeya.
Hello.
Yes, welcome back.
Yes. We keep on dropping networks here.
No network challenges. It's okay. So we're just discussing, commenting on some of the personal. Do you have any particular personal values that that you believe are particularly important?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, very, very, very faint though. Let me try to work on my.
But we can hear you loud and clear.
But are you getting me?
Yes.
But hey, you're so faint from this side. I can hardly. Yes, maybe I'm not sure whether you're still on values, isn't it?
We still are.
Yeah, we were talking about values and how they shape the character and behavior of an organization, and how also they inform the culture in an organization. Because all these things are things that are very important when it comes to business management. Do you have a culture, and what informs that culture becomes also very critical, and that also must manifest in the manner in which people conduct them in an organization. Is the behavior and the character of people in an organization are so very much
the opposite of what the values of the organization, what is written about the values of the organization. Why? Because sometimes we take it for granted when people join organizations that they will automatically find their way through or understand the behavior and the character of the organization from the onset. But these things are supposed to be done during the onboarding. And most organizations don't take onboarding quite seriously, because when you bring in new characters and new faces in an organization, there must be an induction period. And this is the opportunity where these issues of values should be inculcated in the individual, so that they will not find themselves in fits and starts when it comes to really fitting into the organization and the running with the organization's vision, mission, as such, in the attainment of the entire organizational goal. So it's very important that people in an organization induct their people very well, and that includes also inducting people in the values of the organization. If you're talking of punctuality, people must understand what you mean by punctuality. If you're talking of professionalism, people must also understand what you're talking about when you say professionalism. And their conduct must be guided by those things, and must reflect in the behavior and manner in which they handle business on the day-to-day basis. And what does it mean from a personal point of view, as well as from an organizational point of view? What does that mean? And how can one reflect integrity? How can one practice integrity? These are some of the issues that organizations sometimes fail to fulfill. Recently, we had an organization, a very big one, that wanted us to simply interpret values and how they can be lived, how they can be practiced in the organization. We had to go value by value, about 8 of them, and saying how can they be reflected in the person's behavior on a day-to-day basis, and how they conduct themselves in an organization, how each one of them would then lead to their KPIs, their key performance indicators. But all these things must also be part of people's key performance indicators. And we had to go through all that exercise to see also how these can be measured, because they must be measured in terms of practicality, how someone is performing and how someone is practically behaving the aspired value of the organization. Well, this is what drives business. But sometimes you do notice in many organizations, people talk of professionalism, but they don't practice it. And people talk of timelessness, but then you find also they don't practice that. And particularly in parastatals, and some even in private organizations are also catching up the fever, where some of these values are ignored and they are not practiced at all, but they are written, they are all there on the organization, on the wall, but they are not practiced. The behavior of the people in the organization are with what is aspired by the values is captured in the organization.
Very interesting. So are we saying that the values are being lost in translation at the time of onboarding? Mr. Mandeya.
Hello?
Hello, I said, are we saying the values are being lost in translation? Hello? I've also put on chat, Mr. Mandeya, points that you can respond to, if you can hear us.
Wait, you get you. Well, let me just try to join by phone again because.
So I guess the key message out of this point is...
Hello?
Hello, yes, are you there? Hello?
Yes, I am there, but simply that you have to make a plan here how I can maybe adjust. Maybe let me switch back.
No problem.
Saving so much of the sound of the gadget that I switched over to.
No, that's okay.
Has everything but doesn't from the right.
No, that's fine.
So maybe I need to go back to the phone for sound.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We'll be here. So I guess the key message from Mr. Mandeya is that at the point of onboarding, we must ensure that we share those values with our new colleagues. And obviously, it's important that we demonstrate those values. Now, there's one particular area that I find fascinating. This is the adhering to law and order. And for most of us, integrity is one of our core values. Mr. Mandeya, welcome back.
Yes, now I hear you.
Excellent. Yes, I was just touching on the fact that for most of us, personally and at professional level, integrity is a key aspect of our values. But there's the obvious challenges that are faced in the marketplace. And one in particular is the adherence to law and order. That's disconnect. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's also, it is too much to do with how you impart these values into people so that it also becomes part and parcel of their actions and how they behave in organization. Like I've been talking about earlier, the challenge is on the position. You would realize that the aspect of inducting people into values is not taken quite seriously by many nations. And key in really determining the behavior and the tone of so much ignored by leadership. Was the moment then you induct people into some of these values in terms of behavior, in terms of action of the people in an organization, and these actions and behaviors must be actions and behaviors that are contributing to the organizational goal and are guided by these values. Yeah, so the most important thing is to have people to practice and to have supervision, that is thorough, to see whether there is adherence, right, to the demands of the organizational professional values that the organization wants to practice. So it is all about really aligning your people with these things, inducting them into them, training them in these values. This is why I've given you an example of an organization that asked us to practically unpack the values into action so that they become part and parcel of also the key performance indicators of the people who are going to be applying them. So it's very important to induct and train your people into some of these things, and they also follow up with a clearer supervision. And when there are key KPIs attached to it, people would take them seriously and would want to practice.
Yes. Yes, when we remunerate and reward based on demonstration of values, they tend to be onboarded a lot quicker. uh, yes. Are you there, Mr. Mandeya? Hello?
Hello. I don't know whether I made myself clear.
Yes, you have. We can hear.
Oh,
Yes.
but
So the other aspect I wanted to touch on values. You know, obviously our societies and communities have a role to play. After all, we are the customers of the various products and services that are provided by entrepreneurs and various organizations of various scales. What can society do to hold entrepreneurs to account?
right. You know, customer. They say customer is always key.
Yes.
You know, when customers come up with complaints, more often, sometimes organizations don't take these complaints seriously. And yet, the most quiet ones, those that don't complain, are the most dangerous because they simply go away with their, what do you call it?
Their money.
They not service. They go away with their money to some other. They find alternatives. But holding organizations to accountable is normally done by the vocal ones, and they are the ones those that normally, in my own view, bring value to organizations because what they say normally and bring to the organization is something that many others would be failing to articulate or bring to the organization, and therefore it gives an organization opportunity to correct and not to throw away or ignore those complaints that bring forward that are brought forward. So also customers maybe through also their bodies such as bodies. They can bring organizations to, but I noticed in Zimbabwe, our consumer bodies are not so very active and effective. And sometimes many companies get away with a lot of things. And there is need maybe to educate consumers of their rights. And then in most cases, you'd find that they don't have these rights, they don't know these rights, and they fail to hold organizations to account. So there is so much that needs to be done in that area in terms of awareness, right? Programs, carrying out awareness programs, for customers, so that they know their rights and they know how to hold these organizations to account.
Yeah. And I guess just to add on, you know, it's ignore at your own peril for enterprises to be ignoring the feedback of customers. It's actually a great opportunity to learn. As you said, the one who goes away quietly is the worst. The one who tells you what you're doing wrong or what they're unhappy about is good, is your friend. Yeah. Okay. So,
yes.
Yes, so just to look at, you know, there is an aspect, just building on onto the social values. You know, there are renowned organizations that have obviously created products or services that benefit society, and they tend to stand out, you know, get recognized for that. And, you know, it's fair to say that often, you know, customers who, you know, you get feedback that I will always drink a particular product. You know, in Zimbabwe, for example, Mazoe, people are particularly passionate about that. But equally so, some organizations invest a lot of money or resources into the corporate social responsibility to support particular social causes, whether it's in cash or in kind. But for a startup or growing enterprise, any suggestions for what they can do to build that social equity?
Right. For startups or those that are growing, I think basically they should now focus on treatment, good treatment, and after service actions for customers, because there is not much the upstarts can do. Safe to say, they simply must give their best to customers in terms of even feedback and responding accordingly. I think that would go as much. You know, when someone is treated very well, they tend to want to develop loyaltiness,
Yes.
right, to the organization, and they also would develop your customer base through what we call referrals. So I think for upstarts, the investment in social responsibility is not so much very, it's not there, because they are still trying to make it and make an impact out there. But what they can do is to develop their customer base through good treatment of customers and making sure that they develop loyal customers who make referrals, right? And with the referrals, they will tend to grow their customer base as well. So it's how they treat their customers that matters most at that stage. It's treatment of customers that is of importance if you are still an upstart and you're trying to grow. How much you are going to retain of those that you offer your service is what matters, because these will tend to also refer their friends, their relatives, and that's how you actually grow your customer base to an extent that you develop from just a small enterprise into medium, from medium into a large corporate. So there are those stages that, of course, that you must fulfill. So small entrepreneurs are not so much focused on social responsibilities, to say the truth.
Okay, no, that's good to hear. I think it will bring comfort to others, because often we've seen some enterprises invest a lot of resources where you see that clearly the enterprise can't afford it. But as you say, the main thing is treating your customers well, and particularly when a customer is unhappy about your product or a service that they get, it's important to take that criticism and build on it. You know, you always learn. So yeah, okay. No, thank you. I think we've touched a fair bit on values. And moving on to the next section, strategy. You know, we've spoken about the leadership, why it's important, being the guiding structure of the organization. We spoke about mission, which for me is more the now, the today, or, you know, what's our objective. And then the vision, which, as Mr. Mandeya mentioned, is the genesis, the beginning of big things. It's about dreaming big and setting out to achieve those dreams. We touched on the values, you know, the individual, personal level values, the professional values of the organization, and also how you fit in within society. So looking at that whole complex structure, I'm pretty sure each of those we can have a session, a whole day session on each subject. But how do we bring those four components into the strategy?
Right. Normally, strategy is informed by all these things. It's informed by the vision. Strategy is also informed by the values of the organization. Because strategy normally works well with a good culture in an organization. And normally also it's supposed to be supported by a proper organizational structure. So normally it is strategy that must really determine the structure, because for it to implement, the matter to go with it. So apparently, given the situations that we are facing at the moment, organizations must be seized with a strategic management. What is required at the moment to cope with the vagaries of this stage is to have strategic management. People who think strategically, and people who are not simply managers, like, you know, is the case with most people They're simply managers. They are not leaders. Leaders are strategic. They bring with them also what we call strategic thinking that I alluded to earlier on, that it is a very crucial and important aspect of any management endeavor. And because with the strategy, there must be also the aspect of looking and understanding the environment. What are the demands? What is needed out there? What are the environmental issues at stake at the moment? And then you must also align to be able to cater for the environment that is obtaining at the moment. And like Fungai, you find these days sometimes people are so unstrategic, right? They would want to still continue with whatever is they would have planned on paper, and yet the environment practically is demanding a totally different thing altogether, a relook at that strategy and moving swiftly to respond. So sometimes people become slaves of their strategy document and would want to follow it in spirit and letter, and yet the obtaining environment out there is saying or dictating otherwise or something totally different. So we need strategic leadership currently to be able to be agile, because agility is one aspect that is really required at the moment to say, do away with what the strategy is telling us. The environment or the atmosphere currently requires us to take this direction and to do this thing. So that's what strategic leadership is all about, and aspect of what we call it, a predator, right? Predatory skills to really be able to identify opportunities out there, even as the environment is so gloomy. There are opportunities that are also coming with this situation. So we need that mindset of entrepreneurship to be able to identify those opportunities that are brought about by this current environment and seeing how you can capitalize on them. So this is what this entrepreneurship mindset that I'm talking about is all about. To have a leadership that is not rigid, that is not stuck in documents, that is not stuck in policies, stuck in what, but that is flexible to be able to identify the things that the environment is demanding and the environment is also offering, and be able to be seizing the opportunities and also capturing the moment and driving the team towards really the same direction. This is really what is lacking at the moment. And as such, you would notice that a lot of organizations are failing to cope and they are sinking.
Look, that's very powerful.
So what is needed? I would say, Fungai, what organizations need currently is not management, but leadership.
No, that's really powerful because, as you're saying, we see a lot of organizations struggling at the moment and many are folding. But, I'll bring on, you touched...
Isn't it?
No, that's not you, it's me. So, just to pick on where I was, I was saying that, we're talking about the top-down, bottom-up approach of involving everyone in the development of the mission and the vision, the values of the organization. And in this particular time, in this difficult environment, you'd hope that for many organizations, this is the time for their team members to put their eyes and ears on the ground and share that information back with the management and leadership of the organization. Many times you hear feedback that, we could see this could happen. We thought of this, but it doesn't get shared. And in this particular environment, it becomes very critical for that information flow, and that helps the organizations to be agile to respond. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would still reiterate my earlier point that this time I think the approach should be of teamwork. Because if you're locked on yourself in your office, you tend to think you have it all. And yet quite a lot is happening and a lot that you could share or you could get from your colleagues. Very often management misses out on quite a lot of things because they are locked up in offices strategizing and doing that. But if you are one who reaches out to colleagues and team out there, you get quite a lot of intelligence coming from people you work with. They've got quite a lot of things that they would be picking out from the environment, which might also inform your decisions going forward. So it's very wise these days to be always reaching out to your colleagues and finding out what they have and what they think on certain issues and certain matters. And you'd find they'll bring you quite some very interesting ideas, some of which you might not have thought about. So looking up in your offices and sometimes it's not very helpful, particularly in the environment that we have in at the moment. So you must maybe embrace inclusive leadership where everyone is on board. I've often said that these days, the face of the company is no longer the chief executive. The face of the company is everyone else. How people go out there, reflect themselves, and articulate your business. Everyone has got that potential of bringing in business. It's no longer the executive who brings in business. Anyone can bring in business. Even the security, a person can bring business. If he is inducted into the organization thoroughly and he buys into the organization values, mission, and everything, they will be able to articulate the business to anyone out there and they will be able to even attract the business. So the executive is no longer the face of the organization, but everyone has become the face of the organization.
That's a really good point. It actually reminds me of an organization that we're working with that recently gives commissions to anyone who does sales within the organization. So as you said, it no longer rests with the chief executive and his top management to go and seal a good deal. It's no longer left to just the sales team to pursue sales. But as you say, it's now teamwork. It's now about everyone getting involved, whether it's the security guard, it's the janitor, it's the person on the shop floor. Yes. So, no, really interesting. What about working with competitors, or competition, particularly in these difficult environments, a test of values comes into play. And sometimes your competition can play dirty. The temptation to indulge in retaliatory activities can be high. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, competition is not bad. Competition actually is good. It brings with it quality. Actually, competition must give you opportunity to also learn something from the competitor. Like I say, you shouldn't be so narrow in your perspective of things and always think a competitor is an enemy. Actually, competitors would give you something to learn about. And when maybe you pick up something from the competitor and you do it much even better than the competitor, they give you that opportunity to look at things differently and also maybe do it even much better. So competition is healthy. Of course, bad competition is not encouraged. Of course, we've had a situation. I can give you an example of one organization, maybe outside, not in Zimbabwe. They are into confectionery, the bakeries and what. The competitor decided to bring mice into the competitor so that they eat the bread of the competitor, and so that it won't be attractive to the customer. Of course, it was punished heavily. That organization was punished heavily for that bad competition. But we are talking of competition where you always want to outdo your competitor through, of course, orthodox ways and means and business practices. That one is encouraged, because that kind of competition always give you opportunity to do even much better than what the competitor is doing. So you should instead be learning a lot from your competitors, and once you learn, you then do it much better than what they are doing. If you look at what is happening even in Zimbabwe, in the bakery industry, there's stiff competition. I think I will not mention the company, but there is really, it's hotly contested, and they are trying to outdo each other, but using orthodox means, not unorthodox means. But people are getting also quality out of the competition. You also talk of competition in the telecoms and what. It's a healthy competition, and it actually tends to benefit the consumers. And competition certainly would make you not sleep on your laurels, will keep you alert, and also will keep you focused. Because when there is no competition, people tend to relax and take things for granted. So competition really would jog your mind, jog your brains, and you keep on strategizing and looking at more strategies, and it becomes much more interesting. Actually, business is war, Fungai. It's like war, and you have to keep on the drawing board, strategizing and re-strategizing, trying to outdo your competitor in the process, and it becomes much more interesting. And in the process, it benefits the consumers, the customers, and would also grow your business in the process.
Look, that is very insightful. I think some great points that you brought in together. It's been a great session. And thank you so much for shedding much light on these key areas. And I'm sure we've all benefited from it. Obviously, we're in 2021. We thought we'd leave COVID behind in 2020. Obviously, that's not the case. And it looks like it's here to stay with us for a while. But what would be your advice to enterprises, in this environment?
Right. My advice, Fungai, please be agile. Don't be rigid. This environment is not going to suit you. All right. You have to suit the environment. Not waiting for the. I will give an example of the now extinct dinosaur. The stories have it that it waited for the environment to come back to normal, whilst other animals were migrating to other greener pastures. It waited and waited, but the environment did not come back to normal anytime soon, and it got extinct. The same applies with organizations that do not move with the time. They will soon be extinct, and they'll be like those dinosaurs. They are now stored. Right? But those that move with the time, they will survive. Because surely, if you are going to think that COVID is going to end tomorrow, or maybe on the 15th is the extension, then you could be fooling yourself. It's going to be with us for a while. Then you need to really see how you can cope within this kind of environment, and not wait for the environment to come back to normal. It's not going to come back to normal anytime soon. So be agile. Don't be rigid, and also be creative. The aspect of creativeness and entrepreneurship must be seized at all levels of the organizational structure, from the CEO right to everyone must have that mentality of entrepreneurship, wanting to capture, identify opportunities, even in the environment that we are in. There are still some opportunities if you put your mind to it. And surely don't wait for the environment to suit you, but you must suit the environment. Know your environment very well, and to operate within the confines, the demands of the current environment as it is obtaining. I think that's what I can say to those that want to survive the current situation. Also be open-minded. It's also very important. to be open-minded. Don't be too maybe shallow and be narrow in thinking. Be open-minded. Being open-minded means also being receptive to ideas, even from the unlikely sources. You will get these ideas, even from the people you might think you look down upon. You'll be surprised what they have. And please be open-minded and be willing to learn, because the environment we are in needs people who are willing to learn as well and to change, to be flexible as well.
No, excellent, excellent. So be agile, be open-minded, be creative, and be willing to learn and listen to others. That's great advice. Any other parting remarks you'd like to share with us?
Maybe I would want someone from the participants to say something. I hope I've been making sense, and
I told you that we're doing such a good job. I told you we're doing such a good job, Robert. At least I'd like to believe that, but I agree with you. Anyone from the audience would like to make comments, pose a question, or just have some remarks?
You know what, Fungai?
Yes.
I'm still not yet convinced that there are participants here.
Yeah. That's what tends to happen when everyone keeps quiet. But as I said, my belief is that you and I have done such a good job of this session that everyone is satisfied. Now, I think what we'll also do, Mr. Mandeya, is we're going to add you to the Green Enterprise group, where we have the other participants, those that couldn't make it, on the WhatsApp group. So you get opportunity to share more insights. But before we go, once more, any other parting remarks?
All right. By parting remarks, please keep on grinding. Because don't be discouraged. There have been worse off things even before, but people have gone through these things, and these things is just a phase. But you shouldn't, like I say, be so close-minded. Look at it differently, and also look at how really you can find opportunities, even under the circumstances that we are in. There are opportunities out there. So don't be discouraged. Keep your head up and keep afloat. Don't sink, and keep on also be on the lookout, and be willing to learn and learn more.
Mm.
So also my articles touches on some of these things every week. I would want to encourage participants to have a copy, even access it online, of the Zimbabwe Independent paper. Both these things, we keep on encouraging each other, and also participate in as many forums as you can. You will learn quite a lot, and you will hear what some other people are doing, and that would help you a lot. In Shona, they say, Zanondega Agasial Jiramasesi. Or so you need to really keep on chasing after some of these things, even if they fail. There are so many failures that happen in life, but that shouldn't discourage you. Actually, you should actually learn from failures. We have tried quite a lot of things and we have failed. But the good thing about failure is the ability to dust up yourself and look ahead, and even come up with something that is better. Never to give up, I would say.
No, excellent. Look, very insightful. Thank you so much, Mr. Mandeya. Hello, yes.
Yes, I think that's what I would say to colleagues out there.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mandeya. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Very insightful and a lot of words of wisdom. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll have you again in the near future, touching on other aspects of those what we've covered and what we didn't touch on. And for those that attended, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to share the knowledge share session via YouTube and other social media. And equally so, as I mentioned, Mr. Mandeya will join us on WhatsApp on the main group. So thank you so much, Mr. Mandeya. Once more, thank you very much. Mr. Mandeya, looks like it's my turn.
I'd lost you there.
Yes, I think it's now my connection that's playing up. But look, as I was saying,
I'd also. I had some examples of some mission statements. I thought you were going to ask, but anyway.
You can share them if they are close by.
Yeah, just a few. For instance, I've got one. I mean, for Walt Disney Company, they say to be one of the world's leading producers and providers of entertainment and information, using its portfolio of brands to differentiate its content, service, and consumer products. That's Disney. You know. Mm-hmm. And then for Sony, the payoff line is make believe. And they say is to their mission statement is to be a company that inspires and fulfills your curiosity. So you have to be looking at whether these companies are really doing as they put it as their mission. And then Microsoft, they say to enable people and businesses throughout the world to realize their full potential. We find whether they do. And then Google, lastly, they say to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And I think they're living up to that mission, aren't they?
Yes, no, I agree with you on that. You know, those four...
Yeah, so your organization must live up to this mission.
No, that's very true and very insightful. You know, and I think, you know, there's a lot of takeaways from this. You know, particularly the teamwork and collaboration at all levels of the organization. I think you can't, you know, shy away from that one. It's a reality. And those companies that you mentioned, you know, the strides they make is because everyone knows their part and everyone contributes in line with their role. So, yeah. No, look, Mr. Mandeya, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you, and it's much appreciated you taking out you know, your valuable time to join us. I'm sure it's been insightful for all of us. Yeah, no, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone that attended. I'm sure Mr. Mandeya will have you again on the program. And yeah, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Fungai. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. All the best.
Excellent. Let's stay safe during this time of COVID. And let's come out the other side. As you said, open mind, let's keep grinding and seek those opportunities in this environment. Thank you so much.